Global 99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and guests and not necessarily the opinions of the owners of Global Communications Network and the operators of this radio station.
Today can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madera Street. Accessories provided by Chevette Williamson Jewelry. Standout jewelry for standout women. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. I am your host, Michelle Malcolm. As always, it's a pleasure to be in your company today. Thank you so much for tuning in and making GPS a part of your afternoon. It is much appreciated. And so on today's show, we are going to be talking about a subject that has received quite a bit of attention over the past several weeks, months, even years, as it relates to natural resources in the Bahamas. And depending on who you talk to, some people believe that we need to do all we can to preserve and protect our natural resources for all Bahamians, born and unborn. And there are others who believe that perhaps we should consider development. I don't want to say at the expense of the natural resources, because depending on who you talk to, some will say, well, it's not on at the expense of, but side by side. It depends on who you talk to. But today we're talking to a group of environmentally woke folks who are on the side of the argument that we need to do all we can to protect the natural resources that God has blessed the Bahamas with. Because truth be told, once they're gone, they're gone. And it's not enough to, in their view, and I'm sure they will do a far better job than I am right now of explaining their position. But in a nutshell, it's not good enough to destroy what we have in the name of development and then realize later on that what we had was more valuable than the development itself. Because once it's gone, it's gone. There are some who say, would you rather ask for permission or ask for forgiveness? Some people choose to do whatever they want to do and then ask for forgiveness later on. But the challenge here is that if we take that approach with some of our precious natural resources, then it won't matter if we ask for forgiveness later on, because then it will be too late. And so joining me on the show, Jason, I need you to bring everybody into the studio if you haven't done so already. Joining me on the show today and I hope I pronounce these names right. Forgive me if I don't. Sep Hokibo from the Environmental Defense Fund, Rashima Ingram from Waterkeepers Bahamas, and Anne Albury, that's the easy one, from the Bahamas Natural Resources Foundation. Is Joe on the call as yet? Joe is there? Bring Joe in as well. And then a good old friend to GPS, Joe Darville, no stranger to any of you, who's also from Waterkeepers and other um, organizations that are very keen on protecting and preserving our natural environment. Welcome to all of you to GPS. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, good afternoon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you
afternoon.
for this opportunity, Michelle.
Thank you for making it happen. Okay, so everybody has heard about this aggregate mining project that had been proposed, and there's been a lot of lobbying going on over the past several years to allow this aggregate mining project to go through in Andros. The Davis administration has decided that at this time, it's not going to approve that project. And I say at this time because I'm getting word that that doesn't mean that this is over. It doesn't mean that the persons who wanted to do this mining aren't going to try again. But I'm sure the word that this was denied, the application was denied, was good news to all of you. I'm sure it was music to your ears. So let's talk about why this you feel was the best decision for the Bahamas at this time. Now, I haven't yet been able to get onto the stream with my own personal device, so I can't see you guys at this point. So anybody just jump in. I won't be able to say you go, you go, you go. Just remember that we can all sing together. We can't all talk together. So at the same time. So whoever wants to get started, let's get started. Why was this good news, music to your ears, that this request was denied for now?
Michelle, if you permit me, I don't necessarily want to talk about the issue about why this was good news. We know why it was good news, and I'm sure that Anne and Sep and Joseph will kind of elaborate a little bit more on that. But from the perspective of waterkeepers and the work that we do, focusing on clean water, right? So clean water, and then water for fishing, drinking, and swimming. This news is in alignment with the focus areas for waterkeepers around the world, as well as the waterkeeper work that we do in the Bahamas. And I don't know if I can share this screen, but I will try to.
You should have the capability to do that from your end using StreamYard. You see something on the bottom that says share?
Yeah. So I'm looking at it now, and I am not able to see it on my side from the show. But if the viewers can see this map here, it's important to think.
It's not up. It's not up.
Not the address yet.
So you have to click share and then click onto the thing you're trying to share. Or vice versa. But talk in the meantime, though, because we do have a radio audience as well. It's up now.
Great. I didn't do anything differently, but that's good. So if you look at this, it's so important to think about what are we talking about really, and why this conversation is so critical, especially at this point, knowing that a lot of our islands are being inundated by salt water. But if you look at the areas that I am circling, these islands, Andros Island, where it's like that teal color, Abaco and Grand Bahama, that also has that teal color. These are the islands that have the most fresh water in terms of fresh available drinking water. Everything around that, when you look at the Bahamas as an archipelago nation or an ocean nation, is salt water. So to be able to manage the water usage for these islands, for all developments, for the tourist development, for the people that live here, you're really relying on either cisterns, you're relying on rainfall, you're relying on water harvesting, or you're relying on the freshwater lenses that exist on Grand Bahama, Abaco, and Andros mainly. And then let's go back to 2019. Grand Bahama and Abaco being completely devastated by Hurricane Dorian. So the freshwater lenses are now really dependent on what we have available on Andros Island. And so any type of development in this country that affects Andros Island and those freshwater lenses, no matter how far away or close by, need to really consider the future of water in this country.
Okay. Who else wants to jump in now? Joe?
Well, while the others wait, I just wanted to underscore everything that Shima has said, so scientifically correct. One thing I would like to draw people's attention to with respect to the way the water moves underground, and we have already had a significant amount of damage in and around the harbor area because of long-term dredging, aggregate digging, on supposed the purpose of expanding the harbor. But the companies have benefited significantly in the billions of dollars. At the same time, damaging the water table, which if you put dye in any area, in one of those areas in the east, you'll find it coming out in the west or vice versa. And so all of these particular issues must be taken in place. And I just wanted to say quickly before I forget it, for the time being, that creates havoc in my mind. It means that any future political entity, anyone inclined, can go back and say, well, it was not completely denied ad infinitum. The fact is that we could resume it. And I think this is probably some sort of arrangement which has been made in the previous administration and was not finalized until the new information comes in. So we have to keep up our protest with respect to how the mining for aggregate or for aggregate have these particular types of mines have done tremendous damage already to our seabed and into our water tables.
Okay. Anne, let's hear from you.
Yes, I wanted to add to that, and I totally endorse what Mr. Dabo spoke to with Grand Bahama, and especially after listening to K. Cook on blue holes in the presentation we did, and the value that the blue holes have in the connection to the aquifers. And he actually shared that where they're mining in Grand Bahama, that they damaged, it was a cave system, there was fresh water there, and of course that now over a period of time is impacting, in addition to what Rashima spoke to with the hurricanes and everything like that. There is no doubt about it, even though we don't have the scientific research. The other point I want to stress is globally, fresh water is a commodity, and it is predicted by the United Nations and all of these established organizations that globally by 2030, we are going to be facing freshwater scarcity. Freshwater scarcity. We cannot survive. I know a question was asked in the presentation on fresh water. We now in the country, especially in Nassau, is depending on desalinated water. With climate change, the possibility of ocean acidification can happen. What will happen then if now, because we think we have water, because we use the desalinated water, that cannot happen anymore? What will we face as a country? This is a very, very important issue that our leaders have to think about. New Providence freshwater lands have been destroyed through urban development. So it's paramount.
All right. Let's also hear from Sep.
Thank you, Michelle, and thanks again for having all of us on the call today. I agree with all the comments that have been made, and one in particular really stuck out when Joe mentioned keeping up with the protests. I would also highlight the need to continue education on these subjects. And EDF's approach from the start on all this has been Can we do a better job of identifying what the threats are, what the risks are, and communicating and educating the public, local decision makers, and national decision makers about those risks? And by training, I'm a fisheries biologist. I am not a mining expert. So I've had to do some of my own research and look through what are some of the resources available that talk about the environmental impacts of limestone mining. And there's a great paper that I can share with you that talks about limestone mining around the world. There's not a lot of examples where it has been done with minimal environmental impacts. But I will say that two of the biggest concerns that I've seen when you look at limestone mining practices is how it disrupts the quality of fresh water and the quantity of freshwater flow. And Rashima talked about this so importantly at the beginning. When we think about the connections beneath the ground in this limestone geology, this karst geology, the freshwater is unbelievably connected. Joe mentioned it with dye studies. And so one argument I've heard in the past about this mining proposal is that it doesn't actually touch the coast. And so why should we be concerned about coastal impacts? Because it is so connected and because the type of limestone mining that's being proposed can disrupt filtration. You remove the topsoil layer is one of the very first steps. Then you drill down into the bedrock, you blast that bedrock apart, and then use strip mining practices to remove that limestone out of the blasted area. When you do that, you're greatly disrupting the natural filtration processes, and you're greatly disrupting the flow of fresh water. And that has significant impacts downstream, as well as downstream in ecosystems, but also in the human communities that depend on safe, clean, fresh water for agriculture, for drinking water, for businesses. And as Rashima mentioned, this is the largest freshwater storage in the nation. And so there is a lot at risk, and there's a lot of concern from the international community as well as the local community about if this can be done sustainably. The other piece is, I mentioned the quality of fresh water. There's a number of ways that new pollutants can be entered into the fresh water. You've got very large machinery that's going to be brought in to work on this. And you're going to have an open pit that connects to the freshwater lens. You can have new pollutants that are introduced, whether it's oil that's leaking continually or other pollutants that might come from this, from the massive machinery. But you also have nitrogen oxides, you have sulfur dioxides, you have particulate matter, all of these things coming from engines and the combustion of fossil fuels that can therefore also end up in the freshwater. I'll wrap up real quick. I just want to mention the second concern is also the quantity of fresh water.
I want you to put a pin in that though, because we have a call on the line that I don't want to lose. I will give you an opportunity for us to get into that, but I don't want to lose the caller. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Good afternoon, Michelle. How are you doing today?
Great. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. And good afternoon to your guests. You know, I was waiting for the show, so I'm happy that you have your guests on, and I trust that they're all doing well. I have some basic questions I'd like to ask them. First of all, in addition to what was reported in the news about 5,000 acres of crown land, which is the proposed area, and I thank God it has been denied, and I pray God it stays denied. But the area of 5,000 acres, as far as anyone knows, is that the only area that was being proposed for this mining project, this very disgusting mining project in my view? Or was there more than just 5,000 acres that would have been concerned? Anybody knows?
Yes.
Well,
Go ahead, Joe.
I would just say, following the historical plan on Grand Bahama, when the aggregate became almost like gold for Florida and other areas around us for building and building roads, etc., it began to expand, when I think originally only a certain portion of land, whether given by the Port Authority or by the government, was allowed to be dug up in order to deepen and widen the harbor for ships and cargo carrying machinery. And so undoubtedly, we cannot say that that was probably the only amount of land that's going to be allocated, but that is really immaterial. The fact is that even what you could say, it's tragic for anyone to ever dream of such a foolish idea at this particular age, knowing what these particular operations have done on and in our islands. And so whether or not they're going to be granted looking forward, more land, one never knows. That's what probably could have been in the initial agreement. But the point is that we have to just forget about this particular thing about into the future maybe. We have to make a definitive decision.
Joe, I agree with you. I do not support, this is JT by the way, sir. I do not support that type of a project either, because to me it is one of the most destructive and ill-advised project that any government could ever consider for this country. So I 100% I'm against that type of a project. So I'm only asking now for the purpose of information, because and I'm sure that the rest of the public would want to know the exact details here. The other question I have for you folks: has the lobbying by you, the environmentalists, played a role in this decision being negative against the project and positive for we, the Bahamian people? Because that's how I see it. Can anybody answer that for me?
Well, as far as the Waterkeeps Bahama and Save the Bays are concerned, we were invited and we participated immediately in the protests and in communication to the government, the previous one, in particular, with respect to that type of potentially destructive element that should never, ever be allowed. And so, of course, we were not out there in the front with this particular agitation, but we were deeply involved in supporting the group and lending our language to what was necessary to contradict what the developer was saying about the environmental protection.
Right.
And I'd like to add to that the Bahamas Natural Resources Foundation, in collaboration with these agencies, and particularly the co-founder of this foundation, Prescott Smith, who has been championing this narrative, has, we believe, influenced this decision. And I really hope that this pause not only creates the stop for the project in completion, but also it will allow our government to do what is necessary. One, we need studies of Grand Bahama. We need the data, the research, the science to show how the mining there has impacted that environment before any other projects, other projects are even considered. But I am with you. Based on what I'm studying and the research, it has great challenges, and especially understanding the geology of our islands. We are limestone. That's it. We are limestone. Brian K. Cook shared with us the other day that in a research they were digging and to just searching the depth and doing studies about our limestone, and they went 6,000 meters. That's over 19,000 feet, and there was nothing but limestone. So scientifically, if one of the things I can remember, you bother with topsoil, what eventually happens? Things collapse.
Yes.
If we don't have a different type of rock or geology down there. So there are questions about our geology that we need answers for. And we have moved into an extractive industry based on what was happening that's part of the history. That's the colonialistic approach that the previous governments took. It was an exploitive measure. If you look at the history of extractive industry, so industries, especially mining in Grand Bahama. So we have to really look at, do we make a decision based on because it has happened, or what is best for us as a country moving forward?
Right. What's your name, ma'am? I didn't catch your name.
Anne Albury.
Okay, Miss Aubrey, let me tell you what my concern is as a Bahamian, and this is why I like to know all of the details. It's because one, I think a lot of us Bahamians do not know what we have, and we do not know the value of what we have. I've spoken with someone over in North Andros who is a former employee of the Water and Sewage Corporation. He educated me. And he said to me that the water table in Andros, freshwater lens actually, is about 40 to 60 feet thick. And the water table is just about 3 feet below the surface, the freshwater table. And that proposed project would have mined into and below the water table. Automatically and naturally there and then you would have had the water table either leaking out or salt water leaking in, depleting the freshwater lanes. I'm also made to understand that there are 2 freshwater rivers in Andros. Now, somebody can please correct me, because I heard Prime Minister Christie, when he was Prime Minister, made reference to that some time ago in Parliament. I'm also made to understand that because of the limestone that we have, a lot of the fresh water that is created, quote unquote, in Andros is created by virtue of salt water coming into and under the island of Andros into the limestone rock and being filtered by the natural creation or makeup of the rock, hence creating the salt water in addition to the rainfall. I definitely like for you folks to speak to that, but I shall endeavor to close on this note. As I was doing my research on this lately, Michelle, I came across an island in the Exuma Land and Sea Park called Balmoral Island. I think that's the right name. Wherein strip mining was done. And that island, from what I gathered, and I stand to be corrected, was practically destroyed. Lynn Hollowesker's name was brought up as having been, I think, the president of a particular organization way back when that would have been fighting against the mining of Balmoral Island. And so my thing is, if we already have the historical proof that strip mining is devastating and harmful to the islands of the Bahamas, why would any clear-thinking, right-thinking government want to ever consider approving something like that? These are the types of projects that should definitely never be approved. As a matter of fact, if you ask me, they should be prohibited by an amendment to our Constitution. Because you're talking about literally taking the soil of the Bahamas and selling it off. And these people who are doing these things or proposing to do these things are making tons and tons and tons of money. And they're not bringing anything virtually back into the Treasury of the Bahamas. Now, I do not care if it was $1 billion a day coming into the Treasury from something like this. I will never support strip mining because it is just completely devastating. And I'd like if you or your guest, Michelle, in closing, can actually talk about the beauty and the attractiveness of Andros so that a lot of the listeners who may not know can understand how beautiful and how diverse, biologically diverse, and crucial Andros is to the natural appeal of and survival of the Bahamas, in my view. Thank you, Michelle, for your time, and I will continue to listen.
Well, thank you for calling, JT. You really didn't give us an opportunity, but we intend to do all of that. To break the show, you just didn't give us a chance. You just dive right in, which is fine. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. We have several videos that will go into some of the things that JT has asked to see. So we will take a look at those as well. And then when we come back on the other side of the break, I'm going to give Sep an opportunity to finish the thought that he had started when I interrupted him for the call from JT. And then we're going to look at some of the videos that we've prepared for today's show to answer some of the questions that JT had about the formation of the blue holes and the cave system and how it relates to our freshwater reserves and all of that. But let's take this break, and we'll be back with all of that in a few. Stay with us.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rims, paint, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, all-terrain, and low-profile tires, cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Glasses love.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun. Welcome back to This microphone is open. Mine. Welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm here with my guests today, who are Ann Albury, Sep Hakibo. Did I get that right, Sep? Yes, good. And our good friend Joseph Darville. We are here talking about the importance of the ecosystem in Andros, particularly in light of not just in Andros, but the Bahamas as a whole. But we're spending a lot of time talking about Andros because there has been a project that was proposed that has now been declined. That I understand the proponents of this project intend to continue to lobby for it to be accepted and approved. That the persons on this call and others are very concerned about how this project will impact the very sensitive ecosystem of that island. And, you know, the developers are saying that, we're going to take the necessary steps to ensure that the damage isn't done and just give us an opportunity for, uh, you know, fair conversation. By the way, I did reach out to them, decided best not to have them on this show, but we'll have them on a future show. Um, and so they are still intending to continue lobbying for this to happen. I need you to understand,
I
though,
need you to understand.
that the system of Andros in particular is so very delicate that we really need to be very, very concerned about allowing any kind of development, whether it be this or any other in the future, to potentially negatively impact that system. So here now is a clip explaining how very delicate the cave system is, how it was developed, and giving you a little bit of a better understanding of the relationship between the fresh water, the salt water, etc., and why we need to be so very careful as it relates to what we allow to happen there. So take a look and listen to this.
So this amazing, soft, beautiful limestone that we're so concerned about, especially with our mining issues, is home to these amazing geologic wonders. And they all host this incredible ecosystem and have and actually hold amazing amounts of Bahamian culture, Bahamian history, and pre-human history as well. This is a hole here in Abaco, but there are many holes very similar to this in Andros. And this hole, when I was guiding in this particular place, Sawmill Sink, was, because of the unique water chemistry, a treasure trove of fossils of pre-human history. The animals that lived within the Bahamas were found in the sediments and on the debris slopes within this particular site. And that can be said for so many of the sites all throughout Andros. And I'm going to show you some of that material from North Andros here as we move along. And this is pretty much a diagram of the water chemistry within these typical classic round blue holes that you might see from the air in Andros. We have fresh water on top, we have seawater down below, and then because of all the organics, much like Dr. Delabone was speaking about, all of the organics being held in one area and degrading, the byproduct is this hydrogen sulfide gas. And so with all the different microbial activity going on within this layer, you have autotrophs and chemotrophs. Some are using the sunlight, some are using up all the oxygen. You come up with a very unique anoxic layer just below that. And that is what preserves a lot of not only preserves a lot of the fossils that we find, and as well as archaeology from our predecessors, but it's also the basis of the food chain. So this hydrogen sulfide, the bacteria that cause all this, are the very first part of the food chain. Though that bacteria is consumed by different crustaceans. Those crustaceans are predated on by other larger crustaceans, and then all the way up the food chain to the cave-adapted fishes as well. So one of the things we really worry about is deforestation around or on top of these sites. Now, not just necessarily around the entrances of these sites, but over what we call the footprint. So anywhere the underwater cave system might go, the organics percolate down through this extremely porous limestone. And again, they are the basis of the food chain. We need these organics to support this very unique ecosystem.
So just in case you didn't get what he was saying, in essence, we're not just talking about fresh water here, but we're talking about the food chain, so that this could impact persons throughout the country, particularly persons who live from fishing, um, people who, like, for instance, those guys in Spanish Wells who make a very, very good living off of the sea. You're talking about this having the potential to impact all of the country, not just the island of Andros and not just fresh water. So this is very, very important for us to understand. Fresh water is important, yes. For God's sake, we can't live without it. But we're talking about a trickle-down effect that will impact the entire country and beyond, as it relates to the food chain. But Sep, you wanted to make a point prior to the break, and prior to that call, and I promised you I would let you stick a pin in it and get back to it. So I'm going to give you that opportunity now, and then we're going to continue on with the conversation.
Thanks so much, Michelle, and that was a perfect segue. Yeah, before the break, I was talking a little bit about the two major concerns. Talked a fair amount about the quality of fresh water and how disrupting the groundwater flow and these natural filtration processes can degrade the quality of fresh water. The second big concern is the quantity of fresh water. When you start to possibly introduce saltwater intrusion, we've seen in lots of parts around the Bahamas, when you drill a well too deep, you actually get saltwater intrusion. And so instead of drilling really deep freshwater wells, we've learned around the Caribbean and other limestone geographies around the world, you actually drill a pretty shallow well so that you're not allowing saltwater to intrude. And so when you're digging down 40 feet, or I've also seen proposals for 50 or 60 feet, you're going to disrupt the quantity of fresh water. And to JT's point earlier, that there actually isn't a process where that salt water is becoming transformed into fresh water. All that fresh water depends upon the flow of the river system on Andros, which is incredibly unique across the country, and also fresh water from rain. Now, to your point on food security, we talked a little bit about clean water for agriculture, but again, I'm a fisheries biologist, and the whole life cycle of so many species that are important in the Bahamas, conch, lobster, bonefish, tarpon, and permit from a recreational fisheries standpoint, all the reef fish like grouper and snapper, all that depends on the flow of fresh water into these nursery areas, into these mangrove areas, into these marsh areas where the juveniles of all these species are protected and are finding nutrients to grow up and eventually help feed the country, also feed other parts of the world. And so you also start to talk about other livelihoods that would be disrupted, not just the 150 jobs that are proposed to be added, but how many commercial fishermen use the Grand Bahama Bank and have great paying jobs that support families and support local communities. That's money that stays in the country. How many fishing lodges and fishing guides and all the jobs associated with that would be at risk? And when you just do a back of the envelope calculation, just on the recreational and commercial side, right on Andros, it's at least 500 plus jobs that are at risk when you start talking about groundwater quality and quantity being disrupted. And then when you talk about Grand Bahama Bank and all the other communities that depend on those healthy fisheries, you're talking about thousands of jobs. And I'll also highlight how close this mine is to the Andros Barrier Reef, the third largest barrier reef in the world. And think about all the incredible fisheries and natural resources along that reef disrupting the flow of fresh water and the quality of fresh water flow into that reef is incredibly worrying.
So, speaking of jobs, because whenever we hear about this type of development, that's the first thing that you hear. Oh, we're going to be providing jobs, jobs, jobs. So a spokesperson for the company that wants to do the mining sent me a frequently asked question flyer, and one of the questions was, "How many full-time direct jobs will be provided?" And the response was, "There will be 160 full-time jobs for Androsians with an average weekly salary of $1,000 with such benefits as health care and pension plans. And there will also be numerous third-party opportunities for entrepreneurs." That all sounds just wonderful. But if you measure that compared to what you just described, now, math was never my strong point in school, but maybe y'all can help me out. It sounds like what you just described. If far more people in terms of employment and being able to feed their families than this what they are talking about. Am I right here? Am I wrong? Do I need to go back to math school?
Well,
Anybody?
I don't even think we need to consider the math in that, but there's the insanity of such a statement. How could anyone ever put that pen to paper and be so insulting to our country that, hey, we're gonna put in the pockets of a few Bahamians a few dollars? So how could you object to that? No one is objecting to the fact that our people have to live at a standard of living equitable to their dignity as children of God. Poverty is not meant for anyone. That's a self-imposed or imposed from the outside. And so until these people understand that a couple hundred jobs do not meet the requirement for the protection of our environment, I'm so glad Seth, that's pronounced the name, is on the program, because I'm learning so much from him. And not only the fact that he's talking about all these other damaging elements that can be released and flows out into our ocean. And the whole fact is, we were talking about the gentleman who called in and was on the show for a long time. I want to respond to him. If you go out, unfortunately, we in Waterkeys, Bahamas, and say the bays, we have all learned to scuba dive. And so you go out and scuba dive, you get down about 20 feet, you could feel the freshwater flow and back and forth with respect to water going in and out of the land on Grand Bahama, which of course, is basically at sea level. But nonetheless, all this strata under the ocean is so significant. You got to be an idiot to interrupt that and expect that a couple of $100,000 a year is going to compensate because you could create jobs. Do not insult my people.
I want to add to that, Michelle, because there's so much information that we're hearing that what the caller earlier alluded to, education. We are not taught this. There are generations of Bahamians who was not given this information in school. So we cannot forget our past. And a part of our history was an intentional, whether we're in the Bahamas or anywhere in the Caribbean or the world, was an intentional disconnect from the environment. So as a people, we are disconnected. Too many of us are disconnected. What I know now, I've only learned in the last few years. So we, even when we talk about these caves, have found out recently that we have species in those caves that are found nowhere else in the world. How many Bahamians know that in our forest in North Andros, the only island in the Bahamas, only in Andros, there is a bird, the Bahama oriole, that is an endangered bird that is found nowhere else on planet Earth. So you're talking about ecosystems and species that we know, or we are getting to know, and the many unknowns in that area. And once we cut down and deforest, you're talking about a rippling effect, all right? Because if you mine and destroy the blue hole, then you're talking about, or if you deforest, that is going to impact and create the death of a blue hole, and is going to impact your water systems. We have not admitted or acknowledged the interconnectedness of these ecosystems. And that needs to impact decisions for any development on any islands moving forward.
All right. I have a question coming in from one of our Facebook viewers. Miko says, are there plans to raise barriers around some of the mainlands to preserve and prevent the water tables being inundated with salt water? Would that work? What he's asking is it possible to protect the sensitive ecological environment in Andros in such a way by doing what he is suggesting? Or is that just an experiment that could possibly go wrong and destroy it all at the expense of us having to ask forgiveness instead of permission?
Michelle, I can take a stab at that. I'm not a hydrogeologist, but I did study some of these connectivities in my graduate studies. And because that karst is so porous, you would have to build it's virtually impossible to build like a fortress around each of these islands to prevent the rising of the saltwater table. Now, that makes it even more important to protect that freshwater lens. So I could try to draw it, but if you think of an island as almost like this, the saltwater lens is inverted like an upside down contact lens, and the freshwater sits on top of that. And so as the saltwater comes up, the freshwater should rise as well. But this makes it even more important to protect your freshwater sources because at a certain point, that freshwater starts to slough off of the sides of the islands.
Okay, so I want to go back to the frequently asked questions flyer that was sent to me. It says, will the project destroy the waterlands? Answer, no. The project's success depends on fresh water. The Bahamian and international scientists will ensure that that doesn't happen. You know,
that's a question or a statement?
That's an answer to the question that is on. Now, this was provided to me by a spokesperson for the developer. Keep that in mind. The thing is this, though. I mean, there's nothing really scientific in the answer. And I get it. This is written not for any kind of research paper. So they're trying to make the answers as simple as possible in this frequently asked questions flyer. But my thing is this. No fisherman calls his fish stink. And if you are looking to develop something, and there are so many persons like yourselves on this show who are sounding an alarm, and I'm not saying that this is the case for this particular developer, but pretty much I could go out there if I have sufficient money and find anybody who can come and present the message that I want to be presented. Money talks. And so just giving me a very general overview answer like that does not give me much comfort. Now, I don't know how y'all feel about the matter, but I would prefer for you to present to me detailed explanations of why you are saying that this is not going to impact the water table, because I have some experts sitting in front of me now who are saying otherwise. I think it is very condescending, perhaps, to give me my words, brush off answer, and I'm supposed to run with that and accept it as gospel because you say so, considering that you have a horse in the race, you have stake in the game, you want to see this thing approved. Am I wrong here?
Michelle, Um, the individuals and all of us have to understand that the whole island and its surroundings of Andros, they almost comprise an entity almost by itself, almost like a little continent, or almost like a little planet. And any particular invasion done to that at any significant level beyond what normally is necessary for the perpetuation of life is going to be destructive. You have to be idiotic to think otherwise. It's comparable to what happened at the with Bahama Rock and the water, the dredging there. Now the people's, when the high tides coming in, the people's homes are being flooded because there's not that natural barrier there to stop the excessive flow of the ocean, whether it's ebbing or flowing, etc. And so we cannot argue with the people who have that as their particular investment, because they are going to come with all sorts of nonsensical things. And I don't know who they think. They cannot see us as some little, and excuse my language, because too often, we're seen, and I use this analogy, we are not little black niggers on a plantation. We have intelligence, we know stuff, and we need to understand that we cannot be controlled like we were when hundreds of years ago when we were still enslaved. So come on, talk to us as sensible. Come to environmentalists who study this and see this, and the gentleman on the show today said, I mean, for God's sake, I mean, he eats and he digests all of this, and you're going to contradict him with respect to what he says will happen to all of that natural flow within that whole system that has so many the Bahamas, but just on Andros.
All right, Joe, I think you just went into the matrix. You may be having issues with your internet connection. Okay, so you're sort of in and out. Yes,
can I
go ahead,
add
Seth.
a couple points? Yes.
Please,
Joseph had some great points. I think there's a few things to really remember here. One is anybody that has seen the coral reefs around the Bahamas, around the Caribbean, knows that there's already stressors on these systems. Again, I talked a lot about removing that topsoil, removing that filtration. It would cost trillions of dollars to prevent sediment from moving into this open pit and that sediment from moving to the coral reef. And everybody that has studied coral reefs know that as you start to introduce sediment into that water column and put sediment on top of coral reefs, that kills the coral reefs. And the corals are a multi-billion-dollar tourism and commercial fishing industry in the Bahamas. And there's no level of environmental guarantee from any developer saying that they're not going to have any sort of sediments enter into that water and disrupt those reef systems. So I think that's really important to remember. The second piece is that this proposal is one of many that have happened over the last 16 years around Andros, maybe longer. That's just the history that I've heard. And so it's important. One of the earlier callers made this point. It's important to think about what are the policy backstops, what are the conservation backstops in the national legislation that can help mandate sustainable development. And that includes intensive extraction industries like limestone mining, but also a number of other development scenarios.
Okay. We have to take a quick break. On the other side of the break, Joe dropped off, so hopefully he'll be able to come back on. It looked like he was having issues with his internet connection. I want to know, and maybe you guys can answer this, and I hope Joe can get back on because he probably will have some insight. But I'm sure that this is not the only place in the country where this type of mining can take place. I'm sure there are other locations that aren't as ecologically sensitive as Andros. So why the big push? Let's pray that Joe can get back on. I see him coming on now. So let's take this break. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation about this aggregate mining project, not just in Andros, though, because we're talking about across the Bahamas as a whole. So we'll be back after this. Stay with us.
Your body's immune system is under constant pressure from things like stress, lack of exercise, and toxins in the environment. It's crucial to be proactive and support your immune system with the nutrients it needs to function effectively. But it's often hard to get these nutrients from food alone. Introducing fast-acting Zinc Plus Immune Support by Longevity. Unlike zinc-only supplements, Zinc Plus Immune Support builds on the proven power of zinc and adds complementary nutrients to give your immune system extra support. Vitamin D helps balance the effects of zinc, while our proprietary blend of natural fruit and root extracts provides the extra help your immune system needs to work against daily stressors. And we've included Longevity's exclusive plant-derived minerals to give your body the minerals it needs, but can't get from food alone. And because Zinc Plus Immune Support is delivered in a great-tasting, sugar-free, berry-flavored lozenge, it encourages quicker absorption of all these nutrients into your body. Zinc Plus Immune Support. Zinc plus the extra support your body needs to promote a healthy immune system. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rim, pinch, and tire.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
It's gotten harder and harder to get your daily requirement of vital nutrients from food alone. Without additional vitamin and nutrient support, your health and well-being can suffer drastically. That's why Z-Radical was specifically formulated. It combines a blend of antioxidant-rich vitamins, minerals, and botanicals with the protective powers of fucoidan to help fill the gaps from lack of nutrients in your foods. The core of Z-Radical is fucoidan, a naturally occurring polysaccharide that helps stimulate immune reaction, protecting you against inflammation and oxidative stress. We harvest this powerful mineral-rich nutrient from brown seaweed, harvested only from the world's most pristine ocean waters to ensure the purest quality. It's then extracted using cold process technology to ensure maximum levels of bioavailability. Then we add essential vitamins that help to protect your cardiovascular and nervous systems and are crucial for optimal immune and neurological function. Z-Radical also includes a proprietary blend of delicious antioxidant-rich fruits and berries. This great-tasting combination helps your body combat free radical imbalances that can contribute to a variety of degenerative conditions like arthritis and heart disease. Z-Radical. Experience the power of fucoidan with antioxidant-rich berries, 8 essential vitamins, and more to provide you with potent health benefits. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. The telephone numbers to call, 3260271, 3260271, 3260272, 3260272. The WhatsApp line for text messages only, 8010271. I'm Michelle Malcolm, and my guests today are Ann Albury, Sep Hokibo, and Joseph Darbo. Now, people travel from all over the world to come to the Bahamas to enjoy our beautiful ecosystem. And in no small part, a major part of that attraction are the blue holes. And whereas blue holes can be found in several islands throughout the country, Andros is a spot where you can go to find some of the most beautiful, breathtaking, mysterious blue holes anywhere in the world. And I think if we had a better idea of how blue holes are formed, then that would give us a greater appreciation for how important these incredible feats of nature are to our system overhaul. Jason, I know you were talking to a caller, but can I go ahead and play this clip? Is that open? What, we'll caller first? Caller, welcome to GPS.
Good morning. Welcome, Ms. Malcolm. How you doing this morning?
Excellent. How are you?
And morning, guesses. How y'all doing today?
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Good day.
Let's Malcolm. My input on the Andros. Is you're more up to date with my input because I had this input when I was like 7, 8 years old. Andros really supposed to be the capital of the Bahamas, and you know my input how I study my surroundings in the Bahamas because I was always scared of here as a child. I had a lot of fear of where I born, the Bahamas. I don't know why, but my input and I study. Andros is the richest country in the world. Andros never been touched. Andros is the richest island, nutrient, everything in the world. And know what they do? They know this. They kept it from us. They made Andros the poorest in our sight. They made us not want to live there. They made so much mosquito. They made everything wrong with it. The push us over there. They made no job. They made nothing. They just push you over there and made Nassau the capital. And really, when they want to touch it, they go and touch it. So the goodness in Andros is not for us. It's for the elites. And they save it to do what they're doing right now. You hear me? The richest. And they had to make us feel that was, oh, no one want to go Andros. They made us rebel against Andros. Oh, too much mosquito, too much this. Oh, ain't nothing to do. And the richest, they manipulate us. This is Ken Delano. Y'all have a good day.
All right. Thank you for calling, Kendall. That's a very interesting perspective that they try to downplay the importance of Andros and have everybody move away so that then they can go in then and do what they got to do. That's a very interesting perspective. But I want to play this clip. And this is talking about how blue holes are formed. I think once we get a full appreciation for this, because I'll tell you the truth, he made a very important point. Many of us Bahamians have no idea of the value of what we have.
Mm-hmm.
We take it for granted. People travel from all over the world to come and enjoy and admire what we have. And it's like when a tourist goes to New York, they say, how you know a tourist in New York? Because they're staring up, looking at all of the lights, because that's something new to them. You come in the Bahamas, how you know tourists? Because they're mesmerized by the water and we're driving by it like it's nothing. Yeah, that's just a beach. We really don't have an appreciation for what God has blessed us with. So hopefully this video will give you a little bit more insight about how precious the blue holes are in the Bahamas. Here's a video now on the formation, the process that goes through forming blue holes.
Once again, many blue holes in Andros, and that is where I started doing what I do, exploration and research, as well as a business in the underwater caves here in the Bahamas. They are world renowned, found all over the country here. Obviously, Andros has the lion's share of the blue holes, but they are found in our carbonate platforms throughout our archipelago. So for those who don't know, the Bahamas is limestone. There is no other rock found here other than limestone or dolomites. They've done 6,000 meter cores in Andros and never hit anything but sedimentary rock. And in fact, at the depth of the deepest depth of that core at 6,000 meters, they actually hit a void, a cave, that was so large that the whole drill pipe went down and they never were able to tap back into it. So there's been cave creation in these very pure limestone banks since the splitting of Pangaea. We've always been this very shallow sea. There are two predominant types of caves or blue holes found here in the Bahamas. One of them are these amazing slump fault fracture caves. These are a product of sea level change. In fact, all of our caves are a product of sea level change over at least for the last 360,000 years, for the ones that we've been working in. And so if you can imagine the sea level, this would be the coast of Andros here with the famous wall, the submarine wall off of the eastern seaboard into the tongue of the ocean. Well, imagine the sea level 120 meters lower than it is right now, or 400 plus feet. There would have been this giant bluff looking straight up in the air. But instead of calving off like a glacier, what happened was this, it created a slump fault fracture or a stress relief fracture that runs parallel to the coast, about 1 mile from the margin. And this big crack occurred, relieved all the stress of the side of the island hanging off into the abyss. And then sea levels came back up. And where the fresh water and the salt water mixed at different time periods, it dissolved away the limestone and actually enlarged the crack in many areas and created large voids. Sea levels dropped again. Even rock has weight. So when the sea level dropped away, the roofs of these large voids collapsed in, creating these large pits. Sea level has come back up once again, and now has created, instead of pits, are created these blue holes. And blue holes were first actually described in nautical charts all the way back into the 1700s. They were these deep blue voids out on the shallow banks, and as the schooners were crossing the banks, the water would just drop away, and so they were called blue holes, and they were very mystical, and many people avoided them. Many ship people avoided them. They were afraid to take their vessels over them. So this is what it looks like inside of those massive fractures. This is in South Andros, but this fracture actually extends all the way from Dolly Keys all the way to the south of Andros, and for over 100 miles skirts the eastern seaboard of North Andros, all the way up into Nicholstown, actually, all the way up to the very northern part of the island. And so there are many of these openings that are along this fracture or this fault line. And a lot of the holes, some of the holes are marine, which means the entrances are actually out in the sea. Other ones are actually in the land itself, and you can fly over and see them in the lineup, and you can fly over the entire fracture.
All right. So, as you would have heard, well, first of all, explain to our audience who that gentleman is. That was taken from a Zoom presentation that was recently held, a part of a symposium. And Anne, could you let us know who the gentleman was who was speaking in the video, please?
He is the expert on blue holes in the Bahamas, Brian Kekook, and with the founder of the Bahamas Caves Foundation. So his knowledge on our cave system is vast. And if you were to watch the entire video, he speaks to working with other agencies because of the kinds of artifacts that they have found, our culture and our prehistory. But the knowledge is expansive, and a lot of it I heard for the first time as a Bahamian. So, when you say we don't value it because we don't know, and the gentleman said that you reiterated it, that's a very, very important point right there. And it has made me think, do our leaders know when they make decisions? Yeah.
And by the way, I have pulled several clips from his presentation, so I'm going to try to get to all of them before the show ends today. But clearly, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that Andros is sacred ground when it comes to the sensitive ecological system. And clearly, aggregate mining could happen elsewhere and not have as much of a damaging effect or a negative effect as mining in Andros would have, based on the sensitivity of the ecosystem in Andros and its impact on the entire nation. Why the big push for Andros? Why aren't these people willing to say, okay, well, the government has said we can't mine here, so let's find someplace else where it doesn't have as much of a, sensitive ecosystem that we could perhaps mine for, do this aggregate mining. Because according to them, there's not a whole lot of money in this.
Yeah, according to them.
so why stress on Andros?
Right now, the mining company on Grand Bahama is making billions a year exporting our aggregate and our seabed. And now, because we prevented them a number of years from crossing over the road to go into the 8 Mile Rock area, which would have devastated the mangroves. And I think people are understanding now why we fought to save the mangroves and not allow Bahama rock to go across the highway and dredge there for aggregate. But what they did, they initially thought they would go to one of the southern islands, but then the machine to actually generate the power sufficient to run the machine, the Big Dipper thing that can go down like 75, 80 feet. Then they decided, well, they're just going to go deeper here, and which actually potentially is doing even more damage to the environment in that whole area out in that particular vicinity, going into Equirog, Hawksville, Louisiana, Indus Point, and so on. So they not only got the aggregate problem from the invasion of the ocean as we saw, but they also got the underground millions of gallons of oil. And so, you know, two great devastating aspects to the end of that island. We do not want to duplicate another island. Like you said, Andros is sacred. We have to do, even if it causes our life, we have to do whatever is necessary to preserve something beautiful for the Bahamian population in this country. All of the other islands that were created, great wealth and so forth, Bahamians have very little aspect to any of the great wealth. So we want to save Andros actually have the natural wealth to their benefit.
But you know,
Michelle, sorry. I wanted to speak to when you talk about the why Andros, and what the gentleman shared a little while ago of you know, making sure that the situation on that island was so difficult that it forced persons to move.
Yes.
In my research, I found things that have been mind-blowing. But first of all, how many Bahamians realize that the extractive industry, mining aggregate and limestone, has been happening for more than 100 years? And we are managing all of these new contracts under the same system that those persons in the earlier years, decades ago, walked in. So number one, the royalties are nothing. We are not benefiting. So when Seth brought up the point of the risk, you know, we get nothing in return and we are left with nothing. The other aspect is, in my research outside of that history, is finding out that others know about what's in our country. And I have proof of that because I've found documents where thousands of species were taken and specimens from this country from in the 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s by entities to go and study. And we don't even have that knowledge. They're in museums abroad. So how many Bahamians know that? So there is knowledge, but who has that? It certainly isn't us as the people.
Yeah, we're too busy fighting each other over politics and other such foolishness to understand what is really at risk here. And again, I believe it's by design. I don't think that's by accident. And I really am grateful for that caller for calling in and providing that perspective, because, you know, they clearly know the value of Andros because they keep coming at it. And even though it has been denied, they have made it clear that it's not over. They're gonna resubmit and try again. So what is so special about Andros?
Well, I think there's another aspect which is actually generating their keen interest to do it there.
Yes.
Of course, shipping lines. It is close to the United States of America.
You see why I love you so much?
Yes.
Yeah, I love you too. But I mean, it's very natural. They know that within an hour they could get the aggregate into South Florida, and that's going. You know how much money that can reap in the whole mechanism of shipping and so forth. When they're not allowed to go into the Everglades anymore because enough destruction has been done to the water table in the Everglades. So they have to get their aggregate and the materials for building and for roads from elsewhere. And now they're getting it from Grand Bahama. And now they want to get it from Andros. Plain and simple. Right, Anne?
Yes, you are correct. It's the shipping, and the other aspect, the point that it eluded me, is the pureness of the limestone. Brian,
Amen.
Jacob spoke about that because of our fresh water and the whole ecology, geology and ecology there, the limestone is the purest. So
It's gold. It's
that's the
gold.
bottom
It's
line.
gold for them.
It's our white gold. First time I
Yeah.
heard that was from Aaron Ferguson. Never knew it, and that is part of what drew me to searching about.
They can't fool all of us.
I am so happy I have you all on the show today. See, because when I say these things, they come after me. But I have been saying that this is far more about a particular port, in my humble opinion, than it is aggregate mining, because the limestone isn't the only thing that's going to be shipped through that port. But I digress. We have a caller on the line. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Good afternoon, Lady Malcolm and your guest.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. Listen, all of this good stuff we talking about, the limestone and all of that aggregate and the wildlife and all that, we already know for 90 million years how beautiful and how valuable the Bahamas is. Our question, and all of your guests, and y'all are right. Correct. Them Cameron, them fellas, they ain't interested in how beautiful the Bahamas is. They want that gold. They want that money. And let me tell you the study that I did in 2017 prior, when one of them said their mommy gave them a couple $1 million as a gift. I did a study. See, Bahamians don't like weed. I went to the London Stock Exchange and checked them fellas out. And those fellas was valued at $12 billion. Do you hear me? In the London Stock Exchange, the similar them fellas ain't into no conch shell and no crumpet. They can order that from Africa with the kind of money they got. What we need to do from this point on is figure out how we can stop them and make sure something like this don't ever happen in this country again. Thanks for taking my call.
All right. Thank you for calling. The telephone number is to call 326-0271, 326-0271, 326-0272, 326-0272. Those are the numbers to call. And I've given you all the WhatsApp line, and I haven't even checked to see if anybody sent a message. The WhatsApp line, where you can send us a text message, is 801-0271. 801-0271. That is the WhatsApp line. All right.
Can I inject there? Because Joe said something about the Everglades, and this is also an aspect that we have to understand in relation to exploitation. Why also they can't mine there anymore, not only because of destruction, but also the laws, the regulations, and the policies are so much stricter, and also the liabilities. All right. I know in Bahama, with Grand Bahama, with Bahama Rock, the residents complain of health issues, their homes being cracked and so forth. I don't know. Mr. Dowell could probably share if anybody was ever compensated. And in addition to that, you have Queens Cove, which is totally decimated, not just from hurricanes, but it's the flooding that is as a result of the mining across the road, that people can't even live there anymore, get mortgages or anything for that area. So they know, because he has an international partner, what they can get away with in our country. So the previous caller spoke about, we need to make sure that this does not happen. There's not a repeat. Legislation, and as a people, we have to say no and no more.
Because quite frankly, it could very well be a case where, this administration is saying no, and they may stick to their guns and continue to say no. But what is there to say that future administrations, who may be more friendly with the developers, won't reverse that decision because of their alleged friendship? We have a call on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
It's good afternoon. How you doing, Mitch?
Great. How are you?
Okay. I'm trying to find out, is all the islands in the Bahamas made out of coral reef?
Say that again?
Yeah, every single one. Yeah, definitely. Coral formation.
Caller, you need to turn down whatever you're listening to us on, with whether it be the radio or the TV or whatever. It's causing a lot of feedback. So listen to us through the phone, okay?
Okay.
All right. Now go ahead and ask the question.
Did he? Okay, I heard the question. Yeah, go ahead.
Is all the islands in the Bahamas made of a coral reef?
Yes, they're all coral formation. Every single one.
The answer is
Yeah, and I'll also add that it's calcium carbonate. The same structure in coral reefs is calcium carbonate is the same chemical structure in limestone, and a lot of that limestone has also come from the compression of sediments and historic fossils, like these little foraminifera, these little tiny microscopic critters that would live in the ocean that settled to the bottom and then became compressed and turned into that limestone. Sometimes you see chalk in some areas where it's still that mushy chalk, right? That is what has turned into over millions of years that calcium carbonate as well.
Hello?
Yeah, did you hear the answer?
Yes, but there's another question. Do a coral reef grows 1 inch in every 3 years?
Say that again.
Do a coral reef grows 1 inch in every 3 years?
Does a coral reef grow 1 inch in every 3 years? That's the question.
Well, I broach that because right in Grand Bahama we have Coral Vita, which is reproducing corals in the lab about 50 times faster. And it is a fact that they grow very, very slowly in the natural environment. And so what they're doing in the labs now, they're taking specimens from the ocean and they're doing them in the lab, and they're adding certain, whatever it is they're adding to it. I guess that's a trade secret. And that will expedite them to grow 50 times faster. And they're also acclimating them to climate change. So they're dying because of the warming of the ocean. When these corals are now planted back in the ocean, they've also been gradually adapted to warmer temperatures. So that's what's happening right now. So yes, corals grow very, very slowly. Those coral reefs have been growing for millions and millions of years. A lot of people feel, well, the Earth is only a couple thousand years old. This Earth has been around here for billions of years. And so even the dinosaurs that lived 4 billion years ago, could still find them in the substrate. And I wanted to add one thing while I have it here, and that is that another problem facing in this aggregate excavation or this mining is the fact what I think Seth alluded to earlier, and that is the release of all these toxins. Not only that, but if you're destroying the topsoil, all of these trees in which you are going to dig for this aggregate, you are destroying the carbon sink, the very thing that we want to gain credits from. And so the more you disturb any natural environment, the more you're going to release the carbon, which is going to go into the atmosphere or go into the ocean and become detrimental to sea life, and then destroying the trees at the same time. And so all of these are commingled, they are interrelated, and we got to have some kind of divine intelligence, wisdom, and knowingness to know not to do foolish things to our environment, which we are basically borrowing from future generations. It doesn't belong to Joe Dowell or anybody individually, but we are supposed to be preserving it for future generations. What they are doing, they are attempting to destroy the natural formation of God's creation to their benefit, which is sanctimonious, critically wrong.
All right, Sep, you wanted to add? Oh, I'm sorry, Carly, you still there?
And I'm gonna leave.
Okay.
One more question, I'm gonna leave.
Mm-hmm.
If coral grows 1 inch in every 3 years, from I was in school, New Providence was 21/7. When last did they measure the island?
Okay.
I don't know who could answer that, but I think the island hasn't grown much. In fact, around New Providence, like around quite of the islands where you have development, a lot of the coral reefs have actually been destroyed. and particularly in BP, the oil company there, a lot of destruction took place there. And we actually brought attention to all of that, to all the dying corals as a result of petrol being spilt in the ocean during bunkering and so forth. And so the island, it isn't going to grow on the east and the west, not for the next, I would say, 100 or 150,000 years. And that's only if the corals don't die out.
All right, let's get back to the matter at hand, talking about the specifically the project in Andros, the proposal, I should say, for a project in Andros, and more in general, the delicate ecosystem there. Sep, I know you wanted to chime in as to the question I asked earlier about why this focus on Andros so much when they could easily do this elsewhere. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Malcolm. Well, a couple of things come to mind. One is, as Anne alluded, limestone mining has been going on in the Bahamas for over 100 years. And there's a poor environmental justice track record and a poor environmental record when you look at the history of that mining. So I would say, I think all of us on this call agree, and many more people in the Bahamas and in the international community would be concerned to see a proposal on any island in the Bahamas. I think all these islands are sacred. And it comes down to the details of what are the natural resources nearby, and is there a truly effective way, best practices to minimize those impacts. And we have not seen a lot of examples where those impacts have been minimized around the world and also in the Bahamas. So I think that's one piece, is that Environmental Defense Fund and others will be concerned if we see these proposals moved to another part of Andros or another part of the Bahamas for all the reasons we've talked about. I think the second piece is, I heard Andros the other day described as a sleeping giant. And I love that analogy, because there is so much potential there. Anybody that has visited Andros falls in love with the community, the natural resources there, many of which are one of a kind. And I would say we all agree that economic opportunity and development are important parts of any nation, especially developing nations. And I think I would challenge groups like the Andros Chamber of Commerce and others to truly consider, let's not just push one solution, but let's look at the system holistically. There's been some incredible work done on Andros through a number of other nonprofits that worked with the local leaders to identify they actually were not in support of intensive development. They were in support of long-term sustainable development. And that's not just around tourism, because we've all seen how tourism can be disrupted when you have like a global pandemic. But look at the amount of arable land, the amount of land on Andros that can be farmed, and look at the importance of food security that we saw throughout the pandemic, throughout Andros and throughout the rest of the Bahamas. There's a lot of opportunity there. And no, fishing and farming are not easy jobs. And we don't see that the next generation necessarily wants to get into that. But these are true opportunities to make the country more independent, to reduce reliance on exports or on imports, and to start to look at the cluster economies. How can Andros feed itself, but also bring in tourists, also provide sustainable commercial fishing, sustainable agriculture, sustainable recreational fishing and fly fishing and guiding, all these jobs that exist throughout the island. How can the leaders there do a better job of bringing those solutions together and tapping into international funds, tapping into investors? There's so much opportunity on Andros. So I don't want to just think about limestone mining, because there is a need for more jobs on the island. That struggle is real. So we don't want to brush over that. But I think there's so many other ways to do it in a mindful approach.
You know, I'm glad that you brought this up, because this is in keeping with the sentiments of Mr. Brian K. Cook. I hope I pronounced his name right. from that presentation the other evening when he was talking about development being a double-edged sword. So here now is that clip, him talking about development being a double-edged sword.
Development is a double-edged sword. We need jobs. We need resources for our people. We need to be able to thrive as a nation. However, it has to be done responsibly, and I don't know that they even knew that those systems were there when they started dredging out. So it's now, like we were just talking about, we need education. We need to make this information commonplace, that every Bahamian student knows that there are caves right under our feet, and that what we do on the surface has a direct impact to not only the caves, but the water carried within those caves.
Yes, certainly. And I just hope that with the heightened frequency of having conversations like this and making connections with people like yourself, we'd be able to get that information out there to more Bahamians so that the average Bahamian can truly understand the implications of, any kinds of projects or anything going on around our islands. It's good to know the negative effects as well as the advantages.
Yeah, for our part, for the Bahamas Caves Research Foundation, that is exactly why we exist, is to try to get all this information out to the Bahamian public. It's to try to get locals to understand their place, what's underneath of their feet, and how unique it is to the world, that there is nothing else like these places anywhere else in the world. My business exists only because these are the best underwater caves on the planet. And people who do what I do for a living come here for their vacations. They want to see Bahamian caves because they're so famous.
All right, we're going to take a quick. Somebody started to say something.
Just
yeah. Sorry, Ann, go ahead.
No, I heard the presentation before, but I'm still in awe every time he speaks of it, because these caves are under our feet and we don't even know and the beauty and the value.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Seth had made reference to the incredible fertile land on Andros, and in fact on many of the islands in the Bahamas. Not too many, but sufficient, where if proper investments were done, we could employ thousands and thousands of Bahamians in producing food, sustainable food. And you're not going to have sustainable food brought about by simply saying, well, you're going to bring the people from here to here. They can't even get up here because they're way down here. And unless I just took by hand a request from an individual here in Grand Bahama who has applied on Cat Island over 10 years ago to get 2 acres of crown land to farm. And every year he's been turned around, oh, we're going to get to that soon. 10 years. So he's so frustrated, I said, write to the Prime Minister and say to the Prime Minister, you want 2 acres of land to farm, to produce food for the Bahamian people. We could produce basically all the food that is consumed by us in the Bahamas and also by some of our people. If the arable land on Eleuthera, my God, I mean, the wild grass there is taller than my house. It is so fertile. Can you imagine what can be grown there? You got Andros, for example. You could employ 500 people today in Andros, giving them crown land and tell them, you produce food to feed the Bahamian people, and they would be able to do it. So it is, I'm talking about a couple hundred people being employed to dig up our ground and sell it to foreign countries. I don't even want to call it the name that came to mind, but the fact is we could employ thousands on all of our islands to produce the food. Stop talking about it. In fact, I've advised people, and they might put me in jail for it, so because I know someone on a family island who has been sitting on 10 acres of land for 10 years and every year applying, and they're not giving me any answer. So I said, well, you got by time now, you got spotter strike, you continue to grow your chickens, to get your eggs, to grow your pigs and the goats and so forth, and no one can touch you. They cannot. That is, you've been there long enough, quarter strike. Continue to produce to feed our people. And Andros is a golden field for all of that production.
All right, we have to take a quick break. Last one of the show. When we come back on the other side, we're going to talk about training Bahamians so that we have Bahamians on the ground who understand the importance of protecting our natural resources, but who's going to get paid for it. Let's talk about it on the other side of the break. Stay with us. This is GPS.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rims, paint, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Last is love.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun. And welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm here with my guests, Ann Aubrey, Joseph Darville, and Sep Hokibo. We're talking about the proposed aggregate mining project that has been declined by the current administration, and in general, why we need to be very, very careful about allowing this kind of development in the country. Now, here's the thing. I agree with everything that you guys have said so far, and it screams one thing to me, and that is development sustainably with a purpose. I think a part of our problem, Dr. Miles, the late Dr. Miles Monroe used to say it all the time, where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. Where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. So if I use my home as an example, let's say I'm doing renovations to my home, and I have this beautiful picture in my mind of what I want inside to look like. And there's this one beam that's standing in the middle of my plan. And I don't want that beam to be there because it's messing up what I see in my head as what I want this final picture to look like. So I say to the people who are doing the work, I want you to remove that beam because it's getting in the way of what I see in my head. And they say to me, well, that may be so, Miss Malcolm, but that beam is serving a very important purpose. That beam is holding up your roof. If you move that beam, your roof is going to come crashing down. But the beam is in my way. I have this vision in my head for what I see, and this beam is smack in the middle of my design, and I don't want it there. That may be so, Miss Malcolm. But if you move that beam, your roof is going to come crashing down. And then what good is this design in your head? A part of our problem is that we do not understand the purpose of the natural resources. They weren't put there by God just for the sake of being there. But because we don't understand the purpose of why they're there, and we see this not just in projects like this. We look at the few hills that we have in New Providence, and people are cutting them down like it's nothing because they don't understand that there's a purpose for those hills being there. So now when you have any influx of water and you've got the flooding and there's nothing there to stop, and now everybody's complaining, oh, we never had this flooding before, but you didn't cut down the hills before. But we are constantly making these decisions because of a limited vision of what a particular developer wants. You throw a couple of job offers in the mix, and everybody's, yeah, they can hire us, they can get jobs. But in the meantime, you're tearing down a beam that is holding up the ceiling. We got to get this in our minds, people. Just because you don't understand the purpose of something does not negate the importance of that thing. Where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. So number one, we got to fix the vision in our heads. Because as beautiful as it may be for me, it may not be sustainable. And number two, we've got to start to train Bahamians who fully understand that purpose, so that when these types of projects are brought forward, our trained Bahamians, not just people, who come from another country, no disrespect to USAP or, but Bahamians are finicky people. They want to see some of their own bring in these messages. So we need to get to the place where we have trained Bahamians who understand the purpose of the thing. And I'm going to play the final clip with Mr. Brian. Give me the last name again, Anne?
K-Cook.
K-Cook, thank you. Talking about the importance of training Bahamians in this whole process.
I'm currently certifying a young Bahamian woman from Harbor Island. And so my hope is that I want my Bahamian team. I want people who have the same passion about this place as I do, because I'm obsessed with it. It's my drug. All I can think about is getting back in there every day, and that's what I do for a living. I'm in these places every day. So trying to get Bahamians to get as passionate about these environments as I am, and to take up the challenge, after I'm gone. I want to make sure that this continues on. So legacy is a big thing of what we worry about in our foundation. And we want to make sure that we're training people and they understand. We want to get all the information out there, and so that it's more common knowledge of how these places have been, how they occur, why they occur, and what they mean to Bahamian people. And one of the biggest ones is that this is directly tied to the freshwater system. These are directly tied to your aquifer. And so if you want to see the health of your freshwater system, you can go dive in one of these blue holes and see how deep the freshwater lens is, the quality of the freshwater lens. It's a window into your drinking water. And so that's just one of the many aspects of why it's so important to protect these places. So anything that takes away limestone or degrades limestone or deforests above the systems, or remember we talked about how porous this limestone is. Anything that gets dumped into the ground above percolates straight down, and it goes right into either the cave systems or into your drinking water. So there's no getting around it. If you are putting something into the ground, it is getting into the water table, period. There is no confining layers here. There's no stabilization. The whole term of deep well injections where things stay stable in the limestone, to me, is a fallacy. It's just limestone is very porous, and the liquids move through this limestone very, very easily. So what goes in is eventually going to go into our drinking water or into our sea through the conduits going out into the sea.
So, bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, is that we need a fuller understanding of the importance of what we have, and we need creative vision so that we get the fact that you can sustainably develop so that your people can eat, your people have a livelihood, but it takes some creativity so that we don't only look at what has been done for generations just for the sake that it's been done for generations without looking at the damage that has been done for generations. I'm going to give each of you 1 minute for your final thoughts on the matter. Joe, let's start with you.
Okay, I am so happy we're ending with those comments from that gentleman. They touched the guts of my being. And I think that's the type of message that we need to give. This legacy, this passion, combined with knowledge that's going to hopefully be saturated with some wisdom in order to get knowingness how to do correct action on this beautiful gift of the Bahamas that has been given to us. And I would like to end with that because I think so much has been said today with such, I think, passion and commitment to this beautiful archipelagic nation that there's very little I can add to it. God bless all of you.
All right, Sap, let's hear from you.
Thanks again, Ms. Malcolm. I think kind of the finishing thought I'd like to leave folks with is there's a lot of economic development opportunities that rely on reusable materials and reusable, renewable natural resources, fisheries, agriculture, even the opportunity to start tapping into the international blue carbon market. Those are things that continue to provide. When you put that up against extractive industries like fossil fuels and the removal of limestone, those are things that you're taking out of the ground that will be gone forever. And so when you destroy a topsoil layer or destroy a groundwater on these islands, those are things that cannot be fixed, and they will cost a lot of money to mitigate the issues. So I want to remind folks just of all the opportunities around renewable natural resources.
Thank you. Anne, final thoughts.
My final thought, Michelle, would be that we need to get the education. We need knowledge out there. And so we need more persons to join their voices with us to raise this awareness in our nation, because thousands of Bahamians do not know this information, even some Androsians. I feel those that are so for this project, if they really comprehended this sacredness that you talked about, that they would, the no would be resounding. But so join us, help us get this message out there. And so that our leaders would then be impacted to stay the course and do what is necessary for the vision that you spoke about for sustainable economic projects in the future.
I want to thank you all for being here today. Really appreciate it. Gotta go. It's just about 4 o'clock. Got to get off the air. Just for the record, I have reached out to the developers, and they are going to be able to come and present their side of the story as well. So, just for the sake of balance, I'm Michelle Malcolm. Until then, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wellness Wednesday. We're going to be talking about your health. So be sure you tune in. Thank you all for being here, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Ms. Malcolm.
Global 99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and opinions expressed on this show are